Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? It's Rita on the airwaves. How are you?
I am very well. I'm having some technical issues, but other than that, we're doing good.
Yeah. Well, these technical issues. I think the idea is that someone put them on this earth in order to try and test our resolve and our brain power, and see if at the start of the day we might sort of stay calm without exploding. How do you think? Do you think that might be it?
Oh, absolutely. I think technical issues are always one of those. You either lose the plot and throw something out of a window, or you breathe through it, you calm yourself, and you act like you are your own technical support and say, okay, what would I do at this point if I were giving advice? And usually the last thing is throwing it out the windows. But that's often my first thought when technical problems arise. I'm not a particularly technical minded person.
Well, I have to say that I have actually done that. I have actually opened the window, got so frustrated with something, and out it's gone, and it still worked, which drove me insane. But anyway, listen. So we got over that. We can get over these things. What would you like to talk about today? The floor is yours, young Rita.
Okay, so what I wanted to sort of talk about is really the seasonal changes that are happening at this point. So probably most people have heard about the acronym SAD, seasonal affective disorder, and a lot of people feel that they suffer from whatever that might be. Oh, my computer.
It's all going well this morning while she's making some adjustments and stuff, whatever. One of them's burst into life there. Apparently I'm the host now. Rachel will be back with us in just a moment. She did say right at the beginning she was having technical problems, and quite right. Anyway, so she was talking about seasonal affective disorder, SAD, and you've probably seen those lights around that people have. And in fact, at our local surgery, I have to say there's a lady there who's got this big white light in front of her as she's working, and it appears to work very well for her. We'll try and see if Rita's back. Are you back yet, Rita? She'll be with us in just a moment. There you are. There we go. Right. Good. You've got it working now, have you?
Well, I have my phone back. I haven't got it. I think my laptop is actually having seasonal affective disorder. It's just not playing ball now that the wind and the rain has come down.
I think that's what it is. I have to say, this morning when I went down, I let the Fresh Guard Gold Dog out, and I opened the door and I thought, what the hell? And there was like leaves. They were around about 6-7 inches deep from the door right away along the path. So overnight, I don't know what happened. So I was explaining while you're off air just now that with the seasonal affective disorder, that people sometimes have these lights, don't they? They have them, as a lady in the surgery has one on when she's working and says it does her the world of good. But it's much more than that, surely.
Yeah, so seasonal affective disorder is based on so many different things, and it happens for a lot of different reasons. Obviously, there's less sunlight, but if you think about it, even during the summer, how many people actually suddenly start working in their garden? Not a lot. We still continue to live quite an indoor life, but it's more about for me, what I believe is the triggers that the change in the weather creates. So a lot of us, as soon as we see, even in the summer, even if it was August or July, as soon as the grey clouds come over, you can see the trees quite, frantically swaying in the wind. As the raindrops hit the window, it doesn't matter if it's July or February, you still feel that sense of low energy, that sense of lethargy, wanting to sort of curl up in bed and not really do much. And it's because in this country, we've got so many negative triggers around weather. When was the last time you heard a weatherman say, well, I've got some really good news for you. It's going to be wind and rain and 2 degrees.
Well, it's a very good point, actually. It's never proceeded with that, as it's always the other way around.
Yeah, so if it's going to be a sunny, beautiful day, regardless of the month or the season, it's fantastic. Get your sunnies out, enjoy yourselves. We're going to have, 20 degrees and sunshine. But as soon as any sort of weather comes that, wind, rain, etc., there's a negative tone put upon it. So in this country, even though sunshine and rain, cold and warm, they're all just weather. It is all, it is. It isn't negative. It isn't positive. It's just a fact, right?
But
There is no.
People would say it's good weather and bad, but you see, the sunshine is not always good for people, is it? And rain is not always good. But some people prefer a blend or either or. So I don't know where people stand. Some people say, "Oh, let's go to the sunshine," but of course, if you had the sun all the time, you wouldn't know any different. You wouldn't. There would be no flecks, would there? There'd be no light and shade.
Absolutely, and pretty much it's based that we have a perception of what constitutes good weather and what constitutes bad. It's the same with food. We have a perception of what is good food or bad food. All food is food, all weather is weather. And we need to start to move through these triggers, because it's often that when it's cold and rainy and wet, we have a sense that there's going to be more effort involved in life. And these started as kids. If you took yourself back to being a child, if it was a sunny day, your mum probably said, "Cool, get your shoes on, we're going for a walk." If it was a wet, windy day, she just said, "Oh, you got to get your socks, your wellies on. We need to make sure the mud's off. Let's find your coat. No, you need a jumper. You need your hat. Where's your woolly socks? We've got to get the umbrella. Oh, I need to make sure you got your scarf. We need to be wrapped up warm." Suddenly, going from put your shoes on, walk on a sunny day, the windy, wet day, your parents probably, because we all do it, created a multitude of micro steps that said you've got to do all of these millions of things to get outside. And therefore we have created this trigger in our mind that this kind of weather equals effort. There's no difference. You got to get dressed, you got to put shoes on, you go out for a walk. But we've got so many micro steps involved that it creates so many. My laptop's trying to have my laptop's trying to get cold. We create so many micro steps that it becomes actually quite an effortful idea that we would go out for a walk in the wind and the rain, and therefore we create the idea that we need to stay inside, we need to be hermits. And actually it's purely because we've made boundaries based on a human perception of a daily fact. There is no difference between sunny weather, windy weather, rainy weather, any of the above, but we perceive it in such a way, mainly due to what we see on the media, because of the way it's perceived every single day on weather channels, but also because of how we grew up and the effort involved in one over the other, if that at all makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But in any event, people have their preferences, and for people with health issues and all the rest of it, sometimes the warm weather is better for them in that regard. Yes, it's still weather. But years ago, when I used to drive taxis, used to pick up all these people. They go to Bingo or they go to here or wherever it happened, and it was always, "Oh, it's too hot. It's too hot. I don't like the heat." And all. And then further on down the line, they'll say, "Oh, it's too wet. It's too cold." And so, well, hang on a minute. You can't have one without the other in this country, and it's always been that way. So, like you say, you've just got to deal with it.
Yeah. So. We also, as a separate note, have a propensity in this country to just put this country down. Regardless of what happens, whether we're talking about weather, whether we're talking about immigration and Brexit and all of those lovely divisive subjects, whatever happens, there is a vast majority in this country that like to spin it in a negative sense. Even with the rotating doors of prime ministers that we currently have, one comes in, even the people that voted for them, like whether it's the membership or people that wanted them in, will then find a way to create a negative spin on them, rather than actually saying, okay, this is the situation. So for instance, Rishi Sunak is the Prime Minister. That is the situation. It's windy and cold and it's turning into the winter season. That is the situation. Even in the summer, it's really, really hot and it's 40 degrees outside and scorching. That is the situation. But what we often do is just find a negative spin for the situation and sit in it. It's called sitting in the problem. And actually, if we just said every situation is just an experience and it's our perception of the experience that matters, we could put any spin that we want on it. You could perceive something that's traditionally a negative experience and perceive it to be a positive one. It's your choice. Everyone has a choice about how they want to take any given moment. So rather than constantly sitting in the problem that we do in this country, because for some reason British people like to bash Britain, we need to actually find solutions. And for seasonal affective disorder, the first one is to just realize that weather is weather, and worrying about what you can't control is the fastest route to stress. Secondly, get fresh air. Just get out. There's no effort involved. Just go, get your hair wet, whatever it might be. It doesn't need to be an effortful experience. Just 10 minutes a day of getting fresh air really opens up the mind and gives you clarity. But yeah, start to look for solutions to these. Okay, we know it's going to be cold. This isn't new. The winter isn't suddenly this brand new concept that we're all trying to deal with. So rather than waiting until, I don't know, November 20th and going, oh, I can't deal with this, anticipate. People that are, successful in anything in life anticipate and plan. So plan now how you want to respond to the winter. Plan now how you want to behave when the cold weather hits. Plan now what you want to believe that to mean and how you want to react to that situation. Because when you plan it in advance, then you take away the negative cycle of being in reactionary mode.
Yeah, because you know it's coming and you can deal with it, can't you?
Absolutely. If you know that you can deal with it, then nothing feels insurmountable or a problem. It just feels like a challenge that you have a solution to.
The thing is, a number of people have been, we've just had fireworks and that kind of thing. A lot of people put them down and, fireworks. The problem is that people think, like you said, it's new. It happens every year, and it probably will do for some time. And yes, it can be a problem to some people, but will it stop because they moan about it? Maybe not. But will the weather stop because they moan about it? Definitely not. So maybe it's a case, like you say, is owning it, get hold of it, and dealing with it in that way. And is that the way you overcome any challenge? Is that the way you've taught yourself to do that? And for your clients, obviously people are different, but do you try and encourage them and put forward a way that to try and, like you say, anticipate it and not worry about it too much because they can't change it?
Absolutely. So in any situation, first of all, worrying is just an expenditure of energy in a non-productive manner, right? If we worry, we're using energy, and that energy is purely going to a cycle. And we tend to worry when we keep things in our head. So most people, whether it's a problem, I like to call them challenges, but problem, or whether it's, an overwhelming to-do list, whatever it is, we tend to spin them in our mind over and over again. That's what causes worry. So the first thing I would say is just get it out. Get it out of your head. Get a journal, whatever you want to call it, your thought journal, whatever it might be. And just every time there is a worry, get it out of your mind onto paper. It's what we call capturing. Once you've captured it, then it no longer has to spin. You've got a tangible sort of subject that you're trying to deal with, and then anticipate what a solution could be. So I would always say, for instance, let's say someone was worrying about money. Okay, they were trying to, make ends meet. They had an HMRC tax bill that just turned up on their door, right? And they needed to find a certain amount of money in a week. If every day you took 10 minutes to come up with 5 solutions to that, in a week you'd have 35 solutions. At least one of them will work. But the problem is we spend too much of our time worrying about the problem, leaving it up here, not capturing it. So we never actually make it to the solution. As soon as we start to try and move into a solution, the worry takes over again. So capture it every day, 5 solutions to whatever that problem might be. And then by the end of it, some of them will be ludicrous. That's cool. Ludicrous doesn't matter. At least one of them will work. And then if we can do this in advance, so what most people do is they spend their life only tackling things when they're urgent. Mm-hmm. So when something becomes urgent, so let's say this HMRC bill, let's say you had to pay it by the 1st of June. If you leave it until the 25th of May, then
Bigger
it's
problem.
suddenly very, very urgent, and therefore it creates a huge amount of stress, right? Stress only comes when there's urgency involved. If there was no urgency, stress is eliminated. So if we can anticipate that the problem's going to be there, resolve it prior to becoming urgent, we deal with it when it's important, but before it becomes stressful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
So we need to anticipate in advance. So anything that you can see coming. And I talk to my clients about doing this with everything, you know, where there's always going to be problems. Death is a problem that we're all going to face, whether it's our own or loved ones. Rather than waiting for it to happen, decide now how you want to respond. Decide now what your beliefs around that are, and decide now what your response mechanism is going to be. Money troubles, everybody, even billionaires at some point have financial problems. But rather than waiting until that financial problem hits, decide now how you want to deal with it, what your beliefs about money are, and
how you can deal with it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So leaders, I always say, leaders anticipate, losers react. So get out of reactionary mode and start anticipating now the foreseeable problems that you see as problems. They're just parts of life, and start to actually plan for them in advance. If winter is a difficult time for you, plan for it in July, not when you get to November.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. All right. Well, just on the weather front at the moment, Jeff's been on. He said, as the people up north say, it's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes.
Absolutely. There's no such thing as bad weather. He's absolutely true. There can be such a thing as inappropriate outerwear, however. You know, we've all been caught in moments. So, yeah, it sounds like Jeff up north really anticipates well.
Yes, well, yeah, indeed. All right, well, listen, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Rita. It's been a pleasure. Sorry you've had your technical problems, but we've had a few of our own here this morning, and I'm going to solve them. I've got 5 solutions here written down.
Fantastic.
And one is throw it out the window. The second is give it a good kick. The third is not bother switching it on. And the fourth is ignore it, hope it'll go away. And the fifth, which I like, is the best one, a big 5-pound lump hammer. I think that works well with it. I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. Listen, thank you very much for joining us, and we'll speak to you again next week, no doubt. I hope you go and have a word with your computer. Decide the solution now before it's needed next week. All right? Rita, Thank you very much. Take care. Ta-da. Bye.